It's very clear that the next generation of the One Piece world is starting to take over, especially in the pirate realm, where you see like Luffy and the worst generation really starting to elevate themselves and starting to challenge Yonkos. But at the same time, on the other side, it's happening with the Marines as well. After Marineford, there was a major change, and you really started to see the next generation of the Marines start to emerge and start to take over a bit. First of all, the older generation, Garp and Sengoku, retired. You know, they're the two legends of like the older generation. Like, who fought Shiki at Marineford? Garp and Sengoku. Who fought Goldie Roger all the time? Garp and Sengoku. Who fought Whitebeard all the time? Garp and Sengoku. So they were the legends of the older generation. But at the same time, after the Marineford War, they just had enough, right? They like defeated Whitebeard, but they also took a massive L themselves. And it was just very emotionally draining, I feel like, especially for somebody like Garp, who lost Ace. So they had enough, they were gone. So then the Fleet Admiral position was open, and then you had Aokiji and Akainu fight for it, which resulted in Akainu's win. So Akainu took over as the Fleet Admiral. And then the other thing that happened was a military draft was issued across the world, and that brought in a lot more powerful figures like the two new admirals, Green Bull and Fujitora. And then the final thing that happened is that the pirates that we had known for a long time really started to climb the ranks and get into higher positions like Smoker and Tashigi and Coby and Helmeppo. So a shift is really starting to take over in the Marine system, and that is really exciting because we're starting to see the direction that Oda is taking the Marines for possibly like the end of the story and what it's gonna look like and who's going to be leading it and what kind of like justice the Marines will have. And the One Piece is really interesting as a story because it tells the story from the pirates' perspective, right? Pirates are generally known as bad people, antagonists. But in this story, they're protagonists. They're leading the charge. They're like at the forefront. So on the other side, now the Marines are placed in the forefront in an antagonistic role. And it kind of makes you have to readjust and evaluate the Marines and like analyze what exactly they're all about. Are they just being placed in an antagonistic role, or are they actually kind of corrupt and bad? And as the story progresses, you really kind of figure out the Marines aren't really that great. They're pretty corrupt and power abusive, and not too different from what's happening in the world right now. But in the One Piece world, the Marines have this sense of absolute justice that is very extreme. Very, very extreme. Like literally innocent members of the Marines can be killed just for disobeying the orders of a superior. So it has an extreme focus on like hierarchy, and there's no leeway for like disloyalty or disobedience, and their sense of justice, like it doesn't have a moral code. It just does whatever it does. Whatever it takes to take down pirates, they're willing to do, essentially. And we see many examples of this. Akainu, one of the biggest perpetrators of this, killed innocent civilians on a buster call, almost killed Coby for like disobeying him. He actually killed another Marine as well. And even during the buster call on Innie's lobby, you saw when Marine members were like questioning the superiors for like just unloading on this island, they were attacked for like not listening and disobeying orders. And beyond that, the story has reinforced that the Marines are corrupt since the beginning. Right off the bat, we get introduced to Axe-Hand Morgan, who is this corrupt person that utilized his position to essentially take over a town and his underlings as well. And then later on, Baradier, you had Full Body, who was like bragging with his position and used that to like, you know, kind of flaunt and like not really care about civilians. He was just using his position as a way to gain benefits. And one of the biggest examples was Nezumi in Arlong Park, where he was taking bribes from Arlong when Arlong had taken over a village entirely and put them under his control, and they were suffering so much. And, you know, the Marines really just didn't care and took money from them instead. So yeah, the Marines, the governing force, are pretty corrupt. But there are some good people amongst them, and we met them like Smoker, Tashigi, Coby, Helmeppo. We've seen these guys, and we know there are people among the Marines that join the Marines just to protect people and for the safety of the people. But even them, they are kind of blind to the systematic way of the Marines. So like, first of all, the Marines and the world world government push forward this like narrative that pirates are bad and they must be eradicated because all evil from the world comes from the pirates, right? And you know, when they're seeing other pirates, a lot of pirates aren't good, right? They're like pillaging and stuff, so plenty of pirates are bad. But like the way that Marines and world government push it is like the pirates are the worst and the worst of the world. You must take them out. All of them, all right? It doesn't matter what they're doing, as long as they're flying a pirate flag, we have to eradicate them. So they're driving that narrative, and meanwhile implementing this system of absolute justice of like, we don't care, we will go through any route, any way to eradicate the pirates, even recruiting pirates themselves, right? Like the Shichibukai system, like we will do anything to get rid of pirates and keep them in check. And then meanwhile, anything bad done by the Marines and the world government is just brushed aside and covered up and essentially silence, right? So even good Marines within the system are kind of blind to what is happening. But as the story has progressed, things have been exposed, characters have interacted with like Luffy and found out different things. They're starting to understand the world a little more, and these guys are starting to rise through the ranks, and we're really starting to see the next generation begin to take over. So I really wanted to break down which direction the Marines is going, how it will look by the end of the story, what kind of justice are they ruling by, and who's going to be manning these top positions. So let's just start off from the top, and at the very top I actually think it's Kong. Kong, if you don't know, was the previous Fleet Admiral before Sengoku, and then he retired and essentially was placed in this middleman role between the Gorosei and the world government and the Fleet Admiral and the Marines. And you know, he really hasn't had that much screen time. I'm really like interested to see like what kind of person he is, like what kind of justice does he have, how much does he know about like the Gorosei and the world government, seeing that he's like the messenger, essentially the middleman. Does he know all this bad stuff and is still working for them anyways? If so, why? So I really hope his like character gets fleshed out a little more later on. But as for his role, I don't think it's going to be existent in the future by the end of the story, because I'm guessing the world government gets toppled and a new government will be put into place, and it will be much more democratic, and it's going to have a lot more open communication to the point where you really don't need this middleman, right? You could just have the government communicate to the Marines and like have like everything be open and expressed, and no history is getting wiped or anything like that. So I don't think Kong's role is going to be existent. So next up would be the Fleet Admiral position, which right now is Sakazuki, or also known as Akainu. And Akainu, he's not going to stay in this position. He is going to fight with Luffy or Sabo, or maybe even both of them. Either way, he's going to fight them and get defeated. After he killed Ace, and the way he's been set up as this terrible, like absolute justice extreme person, he's not going to stay in the Fleet Admiral position because his justice is just wrong. He cannot lead that position by the end of the story. It doesn't make any sense. I will note that his tone, his character, maybe it's just me, kind of shifted post time skip a little bit. He seems a little more relaxed, right? Like he's shown a little more resistance to the Gorosei, who are above him, so he's not like that extreme. He's not attacking Kuzan, who like betrayed the Marines and joined the pirates. He also said he wasn't gonna go after Wano, even though two of the biggest pirate crews were forming up there. You would think that's like an extreme danger to the world, and he like who hates pirates so much, I don't think like Akainu's the person to like back down and be scared. So like him being a little more relaxed there is very interesting to me. And one of the biggest moments is like him and Fujitora had that big argument when Fujitora apologized to Riku about like what like Doflamingo did to them. But later on you had Sengoku talk to Fujitora, and he was like, listen Fujitora, if you just like apologize to Akainu, he probably wouldn't have cared that much. So like that was like very interesting to me. Like a little insight into Akainu, like not being this complete hard ass. Like if you properly apologize to him, he was gonna like relax a little bit. So like I think his tone kind of like softened a little bit, like his character overall just softened a little bit post time skip, and that makes me interested. Like there's definitely a lot more to his character. I want to know like what happened to him in his past to have him have this absolute justice as his belief, and why his tone has kind of changed a little bit post time skip. Maybe his whole thing with Aokiji, maybe he lost, right? That could be a possibility. Like he lost, but Aokiji was like, I'm gonna go undercover and join the Blackbeard Pirates. I'm gonna put you in this like puppet role as Fleet Admiral. So like maybe he's not completely in control, and that's why he's a little more chill. Either way, I'm excited to see his character get developed more, but he's not staying in the Fleet Admiral position. So let's talk about some candidates who could take over for him. The first candidate I want to talk about is Fujitora. Now he is a great candidate because, you know, his morality, his idea of justice is very moral, right? This is a man who blinded himself because of how much injustice he was seeing in the world. He just could not bear it anymore and just blinded himself. He was the one that set out to destroy the Shichibukai system. He apologized to Riku for what Doflamingo did. So, you know, him leading the Marines as Fleet Admiral would definitely lead him in a good direction. At the same time, he was introduced pretty recently, right? So the screen time, I don't think there's been enough screen time in development for Fujitora for him to really take over in that role by the end of the story. It doesn't really make sense to me. So while he's a good candidate, I don't think it's super likely that he gets this position. Another person in the same boat is Green Bull, who is definitely super strong, and Fujitora also very strong. Both of them would need the power to be Fleet Admiral. But Green Bull, even less screen time than Fujitora because we don't even know who the hell he is, what he does, and like what kind of person he is, what kind of justice he has. Like there's not enough build up to him. So unless there's like immense, insane character and screen time for him later on, I don't see him as Fleet Admiral. Now, one of the most interesting candidates is Kazaru. Kazaru has had a lot of screen time. He was one of the first admirals introduced. And, you know, he's very chill. He definitely has a sense of justice because he does his job and attacks Marines. Insanely strong, right? I would even argue he might be on the same level as Aokiji and Akainu, and he just didn't have interest in the Fleet Admiral position. And that's one of the things knocking him is like maybe he just doesn't have interest to be Fleet Admiral. It would be very funny to see him so laid back as Fleet Admiral, so the Marines maybe become this like super chill and laid back people, but insanely strong. They're not like super aggressive, but if you do something bad, they're coming after you and they're gonna wipe you out, right? That's like kind of Kazaru's vibe. So I could definitely see Oda going this direction, but at the same time, Kazaru just doesn't seem like the person to lead the entire Marines force. We also don't know like what motivates him and like what his past is. Why did he become a Marine and how did he become this strong? Because it seems like he's a person that doesn't care at all. But yeah, for Kazaru, it would be interesting. I could kind of see it, but I don't think it's very likely. One candidate who is very likely is Smoker, somebody who we were introduced to very, very early on. And he was kind of seen as the counterpart to Luffy in a way, right? We saw Smoker have a scene with him as a kid seeing Goldie Roger's execution as well. And Smoker, you know, he could have taken out Luffy in both Logtown and Alabasta probably if there weren't interventions by Dragon and Ace, right? And now Luffy's kind of above his power level. But Smoker, great ideals. He's somebody, you know, another person that didn't like the Shichibukai system. You know, when he saw what Crocodile was doing at Alabasta, he just took a step back. He said, let them do their thing. We're just not going to worry about it. And he had a strong message to Tashigi when she was asking what the orders are. He was like, go see what's happening and judge with your own eyes. Whatever you decide to do, I will take responsibility for. So Smoker, great sense of justice and would definitely drive the Marines in the right direction. And he's also a very nice guy. I think people forget how wholesome Smoker is. So Smoker, when he was introduced in Lockdown, you know, badass, got the bike, he's got the, you know, the cigar smoking, the badass devil fruit. And then, you know, he's kind of walking in town and then this little girl runs into him with her ice cream. And he kind of smugly turns around and looks at her. And we're like, oh no, okay, this is a bad Marine. We've seen a lot of bad Marines so far. And this like badass Marine is definitely gonna like kill this little girl or something. But no, he turns around, he's like, here's $5. Go buy yourself another one, you know, and go enjoy yourself. So Smoker, super, despite how he looks, super nice guy. Smoker's actually mad wholesome. But him leading the Marines as Fleet Admiral, I think would make a lot of sense. The only thing I could see that goes against that is maybe he seems like he's kind of fed up with everything. A lot, like all the corruption within the Marines. It feels like I could definitely see him in like the Garp role where he stays as like a vice admiral or admiral because he just doesn't want the amount of responsibility as a fleet admiral. But besides that, I really think Smoker is a very likely candidate for the Fleet Admiral position. Another person who's a prime candidate is, of course, Coby. This is a person we met even before Smoker, and he, we've really seen him grow from this little boy to now a captain, and his growth has been amazing, and he is somebody with ambition. First he wanted to become a Marine officer, which he did. Then he said he's going to become a Marine Admiral, which I definitely think he will do, so there's one benefit already. I think at the very least, Coby is going to become an Admiral, so his next goal being like Fleet Admiral, it makes a lot of sense, right? Why not keep climbing? Let's not set a peak for Coby. The only thing for Coby is his power level. Like, depending on when the story ends, it would probably have to have a time skip for Coby to, for the fan base to have enough belief in Kobe's power to hold that Fleet Admiral position, because that's a strong position. Like Sengoku and Akainu, that's like some really, really strong people. And Coby, he's definitely grown a lot, and his observations off the charts, but he's not at that nowhere near that level right now, right? So he's got a long way to go in terms of power. But besides that, his ambition, his beliefs, his way of justice, someone who experienced the bad of the pirates through Alvida and all that, but also created a relationship with Luffy and understands that not all pirates are bad. He would definitely lead the Marines in the right direction as a Fleet Admiral, so I think he's a very likely candidate as well. Now the last candidate is Aokiji or Kuzan, and he's definitely strength-wise way at that level for sure. He just lost to Akainu, might have even beaten him, we don't know, there's a theory there. And his sense of justice was good as well. He was introduced as the first admiral, but he was very chill. He was somebody that let Nico Robin go. He was also somebody very close with Garp, and his sense of justice is pretty moral. We don't know it too much, but from what we've seen, I think him in that leading role would definitely bring the Marines in the right direction. And but there's a lot of mysteries to him. Like, what exactly is going on with him right now? Why is he with Blackbeard? For me, I don't think he's turned bad. I think that's just too much of a shift in character. I definitely like the idea of him actually beating Akainu and then him going undercover, or possibly he's joined the Revolutionaries, another popular theory. I think that could work as well. But I could definitely see him by the end of the story, Aokiji reveals his plan and all that, helps everybody win the final war, and then comes back and leads the Marines as the Fleet Admiral. But in the end, I'm gonna go with Smoker. I think Smoker makes the most sense, both power-wise and, his portrayal as a character, and also his ideology and his belief in justice. I think him being the Fleet Admiral at the end of the story makes the most sense. So I'm locking in Smoker at the Fleet Admiral position. Now let's talk about the possible candidates for the 3 admirals. And we're going to start off with a candidate that I think will definitely remain an admiral, and that is Kazaru. And Kazaru, pre-time skip, post-time skip, stayed as an admiral, right? The one consistency in the power structure of the admirals was Kazaru, and he just makes a lot of sense as an admiral, where he doesn't have a major responsibility, but he's insanely strong and he can carry out his duties as an admiral as this super terrifying force for the Marines, and him just staying in that position makes a lot of sense to me. Fujitora, another person, would make sense here. He's a good Marine, his ideology is good, so having another good Marine there in an admiral position would be good. The only thing about Fujitora is I could really see him just retiring after the final war, and he sees that Smoker is maybe leading the admiral, the Marines, and he's like, okay, they're in a good position, everything kind of settled down, the world government hasn't been toppled, I could finally relax, and the injustice has been simmered down. I'll leave it to everybody else, because he's kind of old. How old is he? Let me look this up. How old is he? He's 54 already. All right, so he's not that young, and I could definitely see him just retiring afterwards. So could be likely, but not as likely as Kazaru. Green Bull, on the other hand, we don't know a lot about him, but he seems like a young lad, right? He had the, little nice jawline showing there. For anybody who's read The Return to the Reverie, their portrayal of him is this young Spanish lad, called Ricardo. So I could definitely see Green Bull as this very young guy, who's super strong, but at the same time we don't really know anything about him, so it's kind of hard to speculate whether or not he could stay as an admiral. He's definitely strong enough because he's an admiral right now, but depending on what kind of justice he has, what kind of personality he has, that will really determine whether or not he will remain as an admiral by the end of the story. So his possibility to me is a complete unknown. Kuzan, another possible option. I mentioned him as a fleet admiral. He could just come back as an admiral as well. The only thing for him is that he could just like have gone through a lot, where he had to kill Saul and like you maybe go undercover, had this crazy duel Akainu. He just had enough and retires by the end of the war. That's definitely a possible option for him. The other person who I think is locking in as an admiral is Coby, because it's his dream, and you know, One Piece, they're definitely all accomplishing their dreams. The Straw Hats and Coby, him saying he's going to be an admiral, he definitely will be an admiral. And like the only reason he wouldn't be one is that he will become like Fleet Admiral or something. But I already locked in Smoker for that position. So Coby, I'm locking him in as an admiral. And then the final candidate is X Drake. Now X Drake is definitely super interesting here. I definitely think by the end of the story, he could climb to admiral level. He's like really been connected to the next generation, but so far in the story, for the majority, it was for the pirates. But now, most recently, it was revealed that he is like a sword member, a secret marine. So like maybe by the end of the story, once it's all like settled down, he could definitely come back, reap a bunch of rewards for like his accomplishments, and then get promoted to the admiral position. I definitely think it makes sense story-wise, and his strength developing to that level would make a lot of sense. So for my three admirals, I'm gonna lock in Kazaru and Coby, and then for the last position, it's a toss-up between Kuzan, X Drake, and Green Bull. And for those three, if they don't end up as admirals, for Kuzan, I think he might just retire. Green Bull, it would just be like his personality or his like ideals just don't work, or maybe he suffers a big defeat or something and just like can't do it anymore. And then X Drake, maybe his power level just doesn't match up to the other candidates, and like he just becomes a vice admiral or something. And then let's just go through some other people and like what their fate is. Fujitora, I think he'll probably just retire. Akainu, I mentioned he's just gonna get defeated. Two interesting people is Jian and Tokikage. You might not even remember them, but they're the two people introduced very briefly as two of the people that almost got the admiral positions. But ultimately, Fujitora and Green Bull got those positions. So these two people have a very fun dynamic. They seem like good guys. We don't really know anything about them. They're definitely very strong. So hopefully we'll learn more about them and see them more in the story later on. But I think they'll definitely stick around as vice admirals. I don't see why not. And then you have Tashigi. I think she peaks at vice admiral level. I think Tashigi can get to vice admiral level, but that's where she's gonna peak. I don't think she has potential to rise to the admiral level. That would be insane. Hina, another person I think will definitely get to the vice admiral level. I think she's definitely gonna be stronger than Tashigi, but not enough to really cross that level to admiral level, which is why I didn't put her in consideration. And then the last person is Helmeppo. And Helmeppo, I don't quite think he'll get to vice admiral. Not to sleep on him, but vice admirals are very, very strong. And Helmeppo's developed a lot, but him getting to vice admiral might be a bit of a stretch. I know he's been like a tier under Coby this whole time, and if Coby gets to admiral, him being vice admiral would make sense, but I think he might peak around like Commodore, one rank like above his dad at Captain Morgan. That would make sense storytelling wise for me, and also power scaling wise. So I think Helmeppo ends up as a Commodore. And the way I've done this is I've locked in people. It doesn't have to be this way. It could be like we see Smoker be the Fleet Admiral at the end of the story, and then we jump into the future, and then Coby's the Fleet Admiral, right? It could be like changeable as the story progresses, but by the end of the story, I think at one point it will definitely look like this. I'm not like 100% sure it'll be like this, but that's my prediction for right now. And as for like the justice of the Marines, it's definitely gonna be like we're protecting the bad guys, but like we're not like this absolute justice is gonna get shut down. We're gonna be open-minded. We're gonna be open with our communication. This like super strict hierarchy is going to be broken down a little bit. Hopefully the corruption is going to be gone. They're not going to be relying on pirates. That's already gone anyways. And hopefully they'll just have a better sense of justice. And hopefully that also happens in our own world. But let me know what you guys thought about this video and the next generation of Marines and how it's going to look by the end of the story and what their sense of justice is going to be. And as always, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy, please hit that like button. Helps a lot with the YouTube YouTube algorithm. And if you want to keep up to date with when I'm posting new videos, you got to hit that subscribe button. We are now 166 subscribers and counting. And thank you guys so much for the support. Let's keep it rolling. Hit that subscribe button and hit the bell to join the squad as well. Follow me on Twitter. I'm DKing4, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.